Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Wiktor. I'm going to be getting straight into the video today because I've got quite a big task to be cracking on with, and that is effectively to take out the old roof rack that was on the van and to reutilize part of it at the back for what I'm intending to be a deck on the roof. And then for the remaining part of the roof, what I'm intending to do is to use a uni-strut effectively on both sides to put into the channels to be able to then effectively screw in the solar panels into that, and also to have space around where I'm intending the roof fan, the max air fan, to be. So the first thing I had to do was to disassemble the old roof rack, which was made up of 3 parts. So effectively it was screwed into the actual roof, bolted actually, in 8 places, and then also the 3 different parts, which you can actually see, were also screwed into each other as well. So it took quite a bit of time to do all of that and to unscrew it all. Once that was done, I did recruit my parents to help me out with actually getting the roof rack off the roof. In all honesty, at the time, what I was thinking of doing was to actually remove the whole roof rack that was there and to use the uni-strut across the whole roof. I didn't think about using the back piece, which you can see, to actually have the deck on that instead. And the reason I decided to actually have that as the roof deck is because I feel like because it's elevated, it is a bit more solid, and I'm also intending to have sort of like a pull-out arm where I'll be able to hang a hammock, maybe do some pull-ups on as well. And I feel like having this solution is a lot more sturdy than just the uni-strut alone. And I feel like the uni-strut is a great solution for the actual solar panels to be bolted into, for the sort of space around the max air fan. But I feel like it would just be a waste for me not to utilize at least part of the old roof rack, given that it's such a solid, great roof rack. And I kind of did feel, guilty that I have to kind of get rid of it and I won't be able to use it. But unfortunately, I can't use the whole thing. Luckily, I can use the back piece of it. Now, the reason why I actually did have to do some work around this and not be able to just kind of keep the back piece was because the back piece was actually only bolted in 2 places across 1 beam. So it would actually not be supported by anything on one of the sides. So I would have to make holes in the roof and then be able to bolt that in there as well. It was the middle piece, which you can see now, that was holding sort of the main weight of the whole roof rack because it was bolted in 4 places. So initially I was kind of confused as to whether that's possible, and then I realized actually it is possible to kind of put some new extra holes in the roof and be able to hold the back piece by itself. Now, the first thing for me to do to be able to reutilize that back piece was to have 2 more holes on the roof. So with the Mercedes Sprinter, at least with my model, the holes already exist. They're just plugged with these sort of plasticky plugs. And what you have to do is to ideally use a heat gun to remove them. But because I don't have a heat gun, or rather I do have a heat gun, but I can't use it on the van because I don't have a plug just yet that would be enough to be able to use it. What I did was I used a screwdriver and basically heated the metal part of it with a lighter. So this is a jet lighter. It's a lot more efficient than a normal lighter. And then once I did that, I was able to actually remove this sort of plug, which is held by a fairly strong adhesive. And it took a bit of wiggling around, but once that was out, it revealed the hole, which you then utilize to be able to actually bolt into the roof. And you can actually see one of the brackets in the back, the black one. That's effectively what the roof rack was bolted into, or rather what's holding the roof rack. I do have 2 of those in at the back, but obviously I needed 2 more. So this is where I'm making that hole for those other 2 to be able to hold that back piece of the old roof rack in place. Once I got rid of the plug, I obviously had the exposed hole. I made sure to clean around the area, made sure to get rid of all the adhesive, and this was then the bare metal that was exposed. Now, to make sure that that doesn't rust, I used a bit of hammerite to protect the area, made sure it dried. It usually takes about 15 minutes. You can apply more coats if you want. I applied 1 coat Now, while I was quite literally waiting for the paint to dry, I got rid of the old bracket to basically use that as the additional support. So this is for the middle piece. So I took that off, and also, although I will be using those holes that are currently there for the uni strut, I just made sure to cover it off just so for the next couple of days it's at least a little bit watertight so that no water gets in, for me to be able to then reutilize it. I didn't want to plug it, because if I plugged it and I'll have to drill again, and it would just get very painful and long. So I made sure to just leave it as it is, just kind of use that little piece of rubber again to keep it somewhat watertight for the time being. Now the next thing I needed to make sure is that the hole that I'm putting the bracket into is watertight. So the first thing I did was to cut out some mastic tape, some butyl tape, and then just cover that hole off. What that's going to ensure, firstly, is obviously that no water gets in, and secondly, when I put the bracket on top of it, it's going to keep the metal of the bracket sort of separate from the metal of the actual roof of the van, so they don't rub against each other, so it doesn't create any sort of exposure in the metal that rust could start setting into, and it just keeps the vibrations sort of minimized as well across the two pieces. Now I needed to make sure that that fits. One thing I would say that I didn't necessarily do that I would recommend for people to do is to make sure that the amount of tape you use covers the whole bracket. So I kind of messed up with that one, and it didn't cover necessarily the whole piece. I might go and fix it, or at least put a bit more Sikaflex to kind of cover that off. But then I poked a hole in where the actual hole is, and then made sure that the bolt actually goes through and fits, which was great. The bolts are M8 size wise. In terms of length, it really depends. I mean, those I believe were 80 millimeters, so 8 centimeters. Now you see me doing a very unprofessional thing, which was to use the Sikaflex with my finger. And the reason is, when I actually opened the Sikaflex, it all kind of just came out, and I either had to get rid of it or just actually use it. So you can probably do it in a more professional manner. And mind you, this is the first time I'm using Sikaflex, so there you go. Now you're probably better off just to use as much Sikaflex as you want and feel that is going to keep it safe and watertight. It's better for it to spill out and for you to have enough for it to be watertight than to actually start getting water dripping into your van. So just don't worry about it too much. You can always clean it off after at the end anyway. So once you get that layer between the actual butyl tape and the bracket, you can start sort of working around with the bolt to put that in. Now, initially I forgot to put the washer in, so you'll see me kind of firstly struggle to find the hole, which is great, and then to actually kind of remember that, oh yeah, I do need to put a washer in. So I found the hole in the end, and then I was able to obviously put the washer on and put the bolt through, and then from the inside I would put another washer on and then the actual nut onto the bolt, and make it as tight as possible so that this bracket is fitted in very nicely and it doesn't sort of jiggle around and can hold the weight of the actual roof rack there as well. I also made sure to cover off the bolt with some more Sikaflex at the end, so that it just makes sure that there aren't any little holes that the water can get through. And like I said, it's better to just have that spilling out than for you to then worry about having to try to make it watertight again. So don't worry about there being too much Sikaflex. At least I'm not worrying too much. Maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. If I am, please let me know, but I feel like it's okay. Now, after waiting a little bit for the Sikaflex to dry, I ended up putting the back piece of the roof rack back on top of the roof with the help of my mum this time. And the reason I didn't record it was because it was getting a bit late in the evening. I wanted to just kind of finish off the job, and because also it was just quite a heavy thing to do. The roof rack is quite heavy, so I ended up doing that and then just started bolting that in, to be honest, the same way that it was done before. So just 4 bolts on each side, or rather 2 bolts on each side, so altogether 8 bolts. Washers between, just to make sure that that actually stays and doesn't sort of come off and come loose. And then that was basically it. So that's all done on the roof rack side of things. And what I'm now intending to do is to, you can see there is a bit of metal exposed where the joinery between the two parts of the roof rack were. So I'm probably going to cover that off somehow with something to just make it look a bit nicer. I might do a bit of work on the rust. To be honest, spot by spot, rather than doing the whole thing, I did treat the roof rack a little bit with rust proof solutions. And then last of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some wood on top to kind of make a nice decking, so it's nice, you can sit down and just relax. So there's still a lot more work to be done on the roof, obviously, even on the roof deck itself. The next thing I'll probably end up doing on the roof is actually the uni struts. So I'm going to have to cut it down and put them in to be able to prepare for the solar panels and to be kind of aware of what solar panel sizes I can go with after I put in the roof fan as well. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you can, leave a thumbs up if you have. If you've got any suggestions for anything I've done wrong that I could improve in the future when it comes to the van build, please leave those in the comment section below. And I hope I see you in the next video. Peace and love.